Good morning, everybody. You're very welcome here to this house of Dr. Bezerra de Menezes. We welcome everybody that is via YouTube and also Instagram. Let's take some time together to reflect on the Jesus Gospel. And just after the gospel, this time the passes are collective. So we do have individual passes after the second gospel, which starts at 11:30, finishes at 12:30. So you are also invited to stay for the gospel that today is in Portuguese as well. So we always start reading message from this book, Happy Life, by the Spirit Joana de Angelis. Divaldo brought us. And today, the message that we read this morning, preparing, I'm going to read the same. He says, set some time aside to recharge your mind. Just as the body gets worn out, the mind also gets tired and misaligned. A change in activities, leisure, sports, games, and meditation, all these are valuable resources for mental readjustment. Allocate some time for inner renewal, taking stock of what you are doing and looking for ways to make it more enjoyable, allowing for more balance and less fatigue. The mind is a mirror of the mind is a mirror that reflects the state of the spirit. It deserves love and care to function as it peak. So let's also now have our minds dedicated to the gospel. Let's start then with a prayer so we can begin the work at this time. And let's elevate our thoughts to God, to thank for this opportunity in our lives of being here, to learn, to share the moment with the spirituality that protects, that guides us, that treats us. Thank you, Father, for our wonderful life. Even in the hard times, we understand your love with us. May we have our minds and our hearts dedicated to the gospel, the teachings that we're going to have this morning. And may these teachings help us in our daily lives so we can, little by little, become better spirits. And with that, we thank our dear brother Jesus for these teachings. Let's then start our gospel this morning. Amen. So be it. So we welcome our dear friend, Yuri. Yuri is a worker of the Spiritism. He does the Gospels and the in Portuguese, Spanish, and English. He's assisting and helping us today, this morning. So, Yuri, welcome. It's with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Hosanna. Good morning, everyone. What a pleasure and an honor to be here for the first time, hopefully, first of many. And I always say that the Spiritist lectures or the Spiritist talks for me, they serve two purposes, which I like to call the two eyes. They serve to instruct. That's the first eye, meaning they serve to bring some sort of knowledge that we either don't have yet or we have forgotten, because a lot of what we learn when we're there, and then we come here, we have the veil of forgetfulness. So to instruct, to learn something so we can apply. And the second eye is to inspire. So I think the Spiritist lectures, they're meant to inspire. So we acquire the knowledge, but we have to be inspired, motivated, and motivate ourselves to apply the knowledge that we gather. So the two I's, the inspire and the instruct, I think that all Spiritist talks, they have a mix of both. Some of them have maybe a little more of one or the other. And I think today is a little bit of both, perhaps more on the inspire side, because we're talking about the gospel according to Spiritism. We're talking about seek and you will find, which is chapter 25 of the gospel according to Spiritism. And this specific passage, so the specific phrase, sentence, seek and you will find, relates to this moment in the Bible. This is on Gospel of Matthew, chapter 7, where Jesus tells the people, he tells them, ask and it will be given to you. Seek and you will find. Knock and it will be open to you. And he continues, for everyone who asks receives, and he who seeks finds, and to him who knocks it will be opened. So Jesus, in this very rich passage, as all Jesus's passages were very rich, in this specific one, he's telling us, and that's where Kardec, Allan Kardec, sort of got the name for the chapter 25 from, seek and you will find, is this idea that if we seek something, if we try to find, if we search for something, we will find that something. If we ask, it will be given to us. If we knock on the door will be open. And that's what Jesus is saying here. He's alluding to this idea that God is all love. God is merciful. God is the heavenly Father and Mother that gives for those who ask. And this is a little bit of the idea of the chapter, what Kardec is going to bring and talk to us about. And this idea of this passage where Jesus was teaching us that, teaching us about this merciful, just, infinitely good God. Because up until that point, we have to remember there was a little bit of the idea of the punitive God. So Jesus here is saying, if you ask, it will be given. And he continues in the same passage by saying, what man is there among you, if his son asks for bread, will give him a stone? Or if he asks for a fish, will give him a snake? Right? So if the son is asking you for something, and we are the son of God, we are the sons and daughters of God. If we ask for our father for a fish, for a bread, for things that we want and need, the nourishment. Look how Jesus always made these analogies, the nourishment. God will not give us a stone and a snake in the place of the bread and the fish. And he says, if you, being who you are, being evil or imperfect beings as we are, we understand that when a son asks for something, the father will not give him something harmful. Imagine God, who is infinitely good and just and fair and all love and mercy. Of course, he's not going to give a snake or a stone in the analogy that Jesus made. So Kardec then talks about this notion. He already alludes to this notion that he talks so much in the amazing book Heaven and Hell that is going to turn 160 years old next Friday. I know that because it's the same day of my birthday. So I memorized that when Heaven and Hell was released for August 1st, 1860. So Kardec in that book also talks about how God is, perfect in all its qualities, infinitely good and just and fair. Now, on chapter 25 of the Gospel according to Spiritism, which is the study of today, of this morning, Kardec says here, and by the way, I like to leave the source material for the slide on the top right corner, and I like to bring the texts as they are, because I think there's a lot of value for us to study together. So I bring the texts as they are, and I always leave the source in the right corner. So I always invite people to go and purchase the books and help the center, help yourselves as well. So Kardec here is going to say, from an earthly point of view, the maxim, seek and you shall find, is the same as that other one. Help yourself and the heavens will come to your aid. And I bolded that last statement there because he's saying, help yourselves and heaven will come to your aid. He's giving almost a condition here. He's inviting us to realize that we must help ourselves and heaven will come to our aid. We must not just cross our arms and sit idly by and do nothing in our laziness and expect everything to be given to us. It's very interesting how there's the sequence of the verbs. Ask and then it will be given. Seek and then you shall find, right? Knock and then it will be opened. And this is important. And that's what Kardec is telling us here. This is the base, he says, of the law of work and consequently the law of progress. Since progress is the child of work, seeing that this puts into action the force of intelligence, this force that we already have and we're still honing with each and every reincarnation, with each and every passage that we have in this earthly plane, we are harnessing, we're improving our intelligence, we're improving our morals as well for the moral advancement of not only ourselves but of humankind. And so Kardec is saying that we must help ourselves, we must work. If we're seeking, we will find, but we must do that work. We must, do our part. Basically, that's what he's saying here. And he's talking about the law of work and the law of progress. The law of progress, by the way, which that law that is unstoppable, it's happening. It depends on us how fast or slow we're going to progress, but it's always happening. We're always progressing and we're always getting new opportunities to seek, to ask, to knock. So there's this idea here that in humans we labor not only, unlike the animals, we labor not only for preservation, but we labor for progress. We work for progress of our society, of our technologies, of everything we think about. We don't just survive. And that's an amazing thing because we have that capacity within ourselves given to us by the mercy and love of God. And then this one, bringing a little bit or making a parallel with the Spirits book, question 675. He's going to ask the spirits, ought we understand by labor only occupations of material nature? So labor, he's saying, when you spirits are talking about labor, is it only the material nature? And they're going to answer by saying, no, the spirit labors like the body. Every sort of useful occupation is labor, is a labor. Look how interesting this answer. Every sort of useful occupation is a labor. So they're saying the spirit labors as well, because the labor of the spirit oftentimes goes unnoticed. Oftentimes we don't see it in the material plane. We don't see it converted into a material, in a material nature. And if we go even further here, we can think about the 1/3 of our lives that we spend sleeping. 1/3 of our lives is we spend sleeping. We spend, when our spirit is not in that moment, motioning that body, and we are laboring as well. We are also working in those instances. We are always laboring, we're always working. So it's not only the material nature, and it's not only, and he says they're saying material nature, we can also think of when something that's yielding some sort of material good, so like money, salary, or any sort of material good. It's not only that. When we're praying for someone, that's labor. When we're getting together and praying for people, how much are we getting paid for that? Nothing. How much in the material world are we seeing its impacts? Probably we're not, but we're still laboring. The spirit labors as well. And then the following question, he's going to say, why is labor imposed upon humankind? Why is it imposed upon humankind? It is a consequence, and I bolded the word consequence, law of cause and effect. It is a consequence of his corporeal nature. It is an expiation and at the same time a means of developing his intelligence. Without labor, man would remain in the infancy of intelligence. If we didn't have the opportunity to labor as a consequence of our corporeal nature, meaning we are still very much attached to a material plane in a way when we now making a parenthesis here, when we study the different classes of spirit, the different order of spirits and worlds, we see that we're still in the beginning in terms of evolution of all we can still achieve. So the more evolved the spirit and the more evolved the world, the less the matter will have an influence over it. So matter and spirit, it kind of shifts. So much so, and they are going to say that work in the elevated worlds is all spiritual. Matter is also very different in the more elevated worlds, and so forth and so on. And that's probably another talk. But the idea is for us to understand that it is a consequence of our corporeal nature. We are here laboring and we have an impact in our material world. Yes, because we're still very much influenced by and influencing the matter. Without labor, man, and they're going to say also, without labor, man would remain in an infancy of intelligence. So without this opportunity, they're saying an expiation, but also an opportunity, a trial, or an opportunity for growth, how we would progress? How do we advance in school? By getting difficult lessons. They become more difficult as we progress, as our intelligence progresses as well. We advance academically. And that's something that's very small, but it's an interesting comparison for us to think that without that labor, without the opportunities, we would remain in a state of infancy, very much still attached to the material things as were the primitive worlds. But this is the answer of one of the questions when it says when they're asking if man can progress on its own or if it only needs to be instructed, and they say no, man can very much progress on its own. There's free will. There's also this ability that we all have, and that's why we're here in a world like we have today. We have progressed already. So they're saying all men do not progress at the same rate nor in the same manner. It is thus that most advances are made to help forward the others through social contact, which is also another chapter, the law of society. When we're talking what's the need of society, why do we have to live like with other human beings? A lot of them we actually don't like. And usually are the ones that are in the same circle that we are for a very just and fair and good reason. But why? They're going to say, because a lot of the times if we think about this, we're gonna have some sort of answer when we understand that if we have perhaps advanced more in some area, it is our duty to help those advance with us. And that's something that Spiritism is very has this mission to me that's very beautiful of helping share the news, helping like spread the word to the world, and open people's eyes and help them open their eyes to this spiritual reality. Because we received this almost 200 years ago. And now we're coming back and we're here gathered here today talking about these things to help advance as well, to help bring to alleviate the pain of those who are suffering because they're only seeing things with the material eyes. So it is this idea that the law of progress, that everybody progresses, but not everybody progresses at the same rate. There's people who progress perhaps slower than us and those who progress much faster than us. If we think about the apostles, if we think about Mary Magdalene, if we think about Saul of Tarsus who became Paul, look how, in a way, how fast they progressed, how they accepted the trials and the expiations and all of that, and they made something greater from that. And they're gonna ask, does moral progress always follow intellectual progress? So they're talking about two different types of progress here. Does moral progress follows intellectual progress? All we have to do is turn on the news and we'll have the answer to this question here. But they're going to say it is a consequence of the latter, but does not always follow it immediately. And it's very much true, isn't it? If we think about moral progress and intellectual progress, look how far we've come, intellectually speaking, technologically speaking, from, I don't know, 200 years ago, 500 years ago, 1,000 years ago, 50 years ago. In all the advancements we've had in medicine, in technology, in transportation. But morally, how much have we progressed? Is much, much slower. We're still having brother killing brother, sister killing sister. We still have all these things that are morally wrong because intellectually we are at a point to for this, the transition that we always talk about, the planetary transition from a world of expiations to one of trials and atonement. Sorry, from a trials and atonements to a world of regeneration. But the moral piece is the one that is still lagging behind, and we're still, with each and every reincarnation, we're trying to make it better. We're trying to improve the world around us and ourselves. So no, moral progress does not always follow intellectual progress. It would be great if it did, but it doesn't. So there's a disconnect there. We have advanced a lot intellectually, but not so much so morally, because there's a lot of free will involved as well. There's a lot of this idea that we are the authors, as Leon Denis, another author, likes to say, we are the authors of our own destiny. We have the free will. So when we're advancing morally, when we're making the moral decisions, the right decisions, it's going to be up to us to do that. It's not going to be imposed on us. And then if we deviate, we have to expiate. Kardec also talks about, in this chapter 25, about how in the infancy, he's going to use this word, in the infancy of mankind, man, the only worries were food, shelter, and protecting themselves against their enemies. But the thing is, and he says, animals can do that as well, in a way, right? What is the difference between us and the other animals, perhaps? And he's gonna explain that we humans, we have this ability to improve and progress, and we labor to bettering ourselves. We have this, he called, incessant desire to help ourselves, and that's what makes us perhaps different than these other animals. And he's gonna say it is this desire to improve ourselves, that impels him, man, to seek out the best ways of improving his position in life, which duly leads him to make discovery, to invent things, and to perfect the sciences, because it is science which gives him what he lacks. After material nourishment, man needs spiritual nourishment. This is how he passes from savagery to civilization. This is how we go from being in a primitive state, as we were thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago, to what we have nowadays. That we can control so many things that before they couldn't, until they could control fire, until they could develop language, until all those things were happening throughout the history of humankind. And now we are way more advanced in all those matters. And they're saying here, Kardec is saying here, that it is this desire that impels us to seek for improvements, technological improvements as well. So when we're getting sick, is very sick, is when we try to find the cures. And then I'm glad we do, because we find the cures. We improve technology, means of transportation. Like I said, there's so much improvement, and it is this desire to go beyond, not only to survive, because the other animals can do that as well. They can find shelter, they can leave to find food, they can fend off enemies, but they don't have that natural desire and that ability to improve as we have. And Kardec is very, I'd say, specific in the sense when he's telling us this. Additionally, Kardec's going to say, but the amount of progress achieved by each person during a single lifetime is very small indeed, in most cases even imperceptible. How then could humanity progress without pre-existence in the re-existence of the soul? Again, another theme that the Gospel according to Spiritism came in 1864. Heaven and Hell, 1860. So he had 4 years already of spreading the news of this God that was fair and just, infinitely good in all its perfections, in all his perfections. So there's this idea that without this notion of there is a pre-existence and we'll have other existences so we can continue to improve, there wouldn't be any progress. Because if we were savages still, and we reincarnate savages, or let's say we incarnate savages, we live a life of savagery, we die very young by the elements, enemies, hunger, whatever, and we don't have an opportunity to continue to come back and grow, The other spirits that would come and incarnate would also be savages. Where would progress be? There would be no progress. How can we then conceptualize this idea that we have progressed so much as humanity if we didn't have this notion that we can come back and improve? It's the same spirit, the same immortal souls that are coming back in different material vestments to improve. There is no argument that would say that. Or even if there was an argument, Kardec is going to say then we have to throw away the idea of a fair God, because God then there has favorites. Because can we say that everybody has the same condition for happiness, for labor, even the exact same conditions in earth, even right now? If we think that not everybody has the same condition, then we know there's differences, there's discrepancies, disparities. And if God is just and fair, there must be a reason for that. So there is this notion that the progress without this idea of an immortal soul that has had an existence prior will have another one again, and that same soul is going to be improving and improving society. That's how we find progress. If the souls, he says here, who daily leave the earth were never to return, then humanity would be constantly renewing itself with primitive elements, having everything still to do and to learn. And this is, again, very important when we're talking about seeking and you will find. About this notion of a continuity, of progress, of seeking work, seeking labor, seeking progress, and we're given that. Because God is just and loving and fair. Kardec also is going to tell us that by returning with the degree of progress realized in acquiring something more each time, the soul then gradually, and I bolded the word gradually because this is key for our understanding, gradually passes from the barbaric state to that of a materialistic civilization and then on to one of moral civilization, which I dare say we're not there yet, but we're getting there. And we have improved a lot already. So there's this notion then that there's a gradual progress, there's a gradual betterment of the soul and of society. It's gradual. There's no leaps in nature. The mathematician Leibniz said that a while ago. There are no leaps in nature. And everything is a gradual progress. And we are part of nature because we're also creations of God. So we also progress gradually. He's also going to say, seek and you will find. Work and you shall produce. In this way, you are the product of your work. You receive the merit of it and a recompense in accordance with what has been done. So seek and you shall find. Work and you shall produce. He's adding something else here to the passage from Jesus in Matthew 7. Work and you shall produce. In this way, you are the product of your work. You are the product of the actions that you were able to do according to your free will. Because free will allow us to do that. We have the free will. We just have to understand that everything we do will have a rebound effect in a way, good or bad. Which also applies to the seek and you shall find. What are we seeking? What are we working to produce? If we're working for something that's, let's put it in very plain terms as Kardec likes to say, evil, that's what we're going to collect back. If we're deviating from the path, we're going to have to expiate to come back to the path. So there's this notion that we are the products, and what we do is the product of what we're working towards, of our thoughts, our actions. What sentiments am I cultivating in here? All those things. And again, it's a gradual progress. But when we're seeking, and that's what the chapter is about, when we're seeking, we will find. That's for sure. It matters of what we're seeking. What is it that we're seeking? He says, it is by virtue of this principle that the spirits do not help in sparing men the work of research by bringing them discoveries and inventions prepared and ready for use. And I put there, but we must do the work. We must do the work. And the principle, this idea that if we seek, we will find, and we will receive those things. He says here, research by bringing discoveries and inventions, of course, because the world is progressing. And I mentioned transportation, technology, medicine. Look how many things we have improved already from a while ago. We are receiving, he says, receiving these things, or bringing, because a lot of the times these situations occur because the spirit asks for that, and they bring that knowledge from when they're in the spirit plane. They come, they reincarnate with that mission to bring that cure, to bring that new technology, to bring that for the betterment of humankind. So there's this idea that we come with these things, but we must do the work. And I put the image of the self-made man, the statue, which is a very nice visualization for us to realize that we are the ones who have the chisel in our hands. We are the ones that are sculpting ourselves morally. We are the ones that need to do the work. Nobody is doing the sculpture. That's why I love this sculpture. There's not a third person there. Just is the man himself in the statue that's chipping away and working. And that's what we do. That's why Spiritism talks so much about the inner transformation, about the moral transformation, the only which is the progress that we're all seeking to get, that we're still working so hard to achieve. And we have the two biggest enemies, pride and selfishness, as we learn in the Spirit's book. The two enemies of progress, of moral progress. But the thing is, we must do the work. Of course, it would be easy if everything was given to us, but where would be the merit in that? How would we progress in that? If for those who have children, if you are doing your children's homework, if you're doing everything for them, if you go to school and you take the test for them, how are they gonna progress? How they're gonna learn? They're not. It's the same way with us. We must do the work. And reminds me of a passage when um, we have this one psychograph by Chico Xavier by the author Humberto de Campos, and this is when they were at one time they were gathering and Jesus was healing people, and Simon Peter and Philip, they came to him and they said, you know why, Master, it's so hard to focus on everything we can, like we need to focus when we're establishing the kingdom of heaven, when the body hurts, when there's all these diseases and deficiencies. It's hard for people to focus when they're being afflicted by so many things. Can't we just heal them all and just then preach, because they used to come, Jesus would preach first, would tell them, and then he would heal them. But they wanted to do the opposite. Like, it's so much harder to focus when your body is in pain. And then Humberto de Campos is going to tell us that Jesus says, okay, tomorrow we'll do that. We're going to heal everybody that comes here. So Jesus came, the apostles came, everybody started to come. Jesus began his miracle healings without preaching, according to the author. He healed a bunch of people, and every time they would leave the little tent they had, Simon Peter or Philip or anybody would approach them and say, let me tell you about, the kingdom of God. Let me tell you about what we're trying to establish here. Now that you're healed and all of that. I'm sorry, I have people waiting for me at home. I really need to go. I really need to go. I can't. My business is everything is so busy right now. I appreciate it though, but I really need to go. One after the other, and then at the end, it was Jesus and the 12. Nobody else was there. And then Jesus tells them, teaches them a lesson by saying, this is why it's so important, and this is why sickness has its role, because we need that to still, because we're very still attached to the material plane, we need that to be able to guide us to what is right, to make us rethink. And he speaks way more eloquently than I am right now. But that's the idea. We can't. We need that. And that's why we still have these things. But slowly, gradually, we improve. Gradually, we receive new technologies that enable us to live better, to live longer, to live with more comfort, to live with more security, more practical ways. So here's the lesson as well, that we must do the work and we need to realize what we have at our disposal and what is it that we're truly seeking. And just to make a small parenthesis here, I brought this passage from Words of Eternal Life. And this is a book by Emmanuel, psychographed by Chico Xavier. And in this message here, Emmanuel is going to say, let us observe that the Lord, in front of the hungry crowd, does not ask his companions, how many loaves of bread do we need? But rather, how many loaves do you have? Because Kardec is going to tell us that we need to give something. We need to work. And this ties very much with that. Because Emmanuel is bringing to our attention, and I was very shocked, honestly, the first time I read this passage. Why did he ask for that, right? Jesus cautions to his disciples to the need of something to be presented to the divine providence as the basis for the help we beg for. So Jesus cautioned that. And I like to mention, when I mentioned in this passage of the multiplication of the bread, that the people were hungry. Thousands of people were hungry. In some passages, they have been following the Master for 3 days. They were in a secluded location. So then Jesus, they're like, Master, we need to tell them to go. We need to disperse the crowd because they're going to go hungry. Some of them are going to faint on their way back. Jesus says, you go feed them, which is another interesting point. But moving forward, he says, they're like, but we only have, and some say five bread to fish, like a very small quantity when compared to thousands of people. And Emmanuel is saying, why do you think Jesus says, how many loaves do you have, and not how many do we need? Because also Jesus could have seen the crowd was thousands. He knew they weren't bringing carts of food with them to feed everybody. He knew. But still he said, how many loaves do you have? And they say, oh, we only have, 2, 3, 5, a handful. Bring them here. Look at the wisdom in this passage. And Emmanuel is calling our attention to that. The need for something to be presented to the divine providence as the basis for the help we beg for. Seek and you will find. Ask and it will be given. But there's an asterisk in the ask. We must present something to the divine providence as well. We can't just, like I said, be there with our arms crossed, waiting idly by. And the other author, Joanna de Angelis, that we read the message, No Happy Life, today about labor, including how we must rest as well, which is interesting how it connects. Joanna de Angelis, through the hands of Vivaldo, she wrote a message. She wrote many books, and in her series, her psychological series, she talks about this idea that for those healings to occur, because those people were asking to be healed, and it was given to them, those who could be healed, and that's another interesting point. But she says there must be the want and the belief. The want is a decision, is an action. I'm asking for something. I'm seeking something, but do I want it? Am I doing what's necessary? That's what Joanna is going to say. Am I doing what's necessary? So we think of and I like to give this example every time, the woman who was healed by touching Jesus's hem, 12, 13 years, whatever it was, that she was bleeding nonstop. She touched the hem of his clothes. Somebody touch me. Master, everybody is touching you. No, somebody touch me. And the woman was healed. Because the want was so strong that she basically went under. She was there. She went there. It's a decision. She was giving something. She wasn't just waiting for the cure to occur. And the second piece, she believed in it. She truly believed in it. And a lot of the times, those cures, let's call, some of them did not occur, or those who wanted to follow Jesus did not follow, either because they didn't put the necessary work with which is the want, or there was no true faith. They didn't truly believe in that. And Kardec in the Gospel is going to say, you will find your path strewn with stones, meaning there's stones scattered everywhere, full of stones and barriers. Look upon them and move them. We will give you the necessary strength if you care to utilize this. This is the message from the spirits. We will give you the strength. We will help you. Ask and you shall receive. Seek and you will find. But do not try to ask or seek for a path with no stones. We're not there yet. We will be there one day. One day, very, very far from today. But we will be there. Right now, the path is strewn, meaning there's a lot of stones in our path. We must remove them. We're not going to stare at the stone and wait for the stone to get out of the way on its own. We have to remove them. We have to give something to the providence. Ask and you shall receive. Seek and you will find. But there's an action that must come from us in that matter. And we will be helped by the spiritual world as we are already helped, as we have always been helped by them. But we must do our part. He's also going to say, from a moral point of view, these words of Jesus signify that if we ask for the light which will show us the way, it will be given. If we ask for strength to resist evil, we shall receive it. If we ask for the assistance of the good spirits, then they will come to accompany us. But we must ask with sincerity, faith, confidence, and fervor. Interesting, he puts fervor. So the passion turned good in a way. This fervor. We must present ourselves with humility and not with arrogance, which is a direct daughter of pride. Arrogance, thinking that we can do it all. We don't need anybody. I don't need any help. I can do it. I don't need to change that. You need to change that. But whenever we're asking, he's saying we must ask with sincerity, faith, confidence, and fervor. And specifically here, just to make a parenthesis on the faith piece, I want to talk about that passage where Jesus told his disciples to go on the boat, and then he dismissed them. They went on the boat, and after a while he started to come, and he was walking on water. The disciples saw him, and thought it was a ghost. He's like, and he says, and I brought the passage here. But Jesus immediately said to them, "Take courage, it is I. Do not be afraid." And then Simon Peter says, "Lord, if it's you," he wasn't trusting completely. So here's the proof. Lord, if it's you, tell me to come to you on the water. He's asking for something that he wouldn't ask from anybody else. So if it's truly the master that I know, ask me to come to you and I'll walk on the water. And Jesus says, "Come." Then Peter, and I bolded this part here, then Peter got down out of the boat and walked on the water and came toward Jesus. So the passage here is saying that he actually got out of the boat, so he had faith in that moment, started to walk on water toward Jesus. However, he saw the wind. He was afraid. And beginning to sink, he cried out, "Lord, save me." And I think this passage is so rich when we're talking about faith. It's almost like I like to think of it this way. Jesus talked about the mustard seed of faith. I think he had the mustard seed for a few seconds there when he got out on the boat and started to walk on water. But he saw the wind. What is that? Let's bring it to our lives. What is that? What is the wind in our lives? The difficulties, the challenges. We may have faith for a second or so until something comes and a difficult situation presents itself, and our faith wavers. We do like Simon Peter. We have that faith for that moment, but then it wavers. Whenever there's a difficult situation, whenever there's a barrier that we could not foresee or that we didn't pay attention to. That's what happened. Look how much wisdom we have here. So when we're talking about faith, when we're talking about seeking and finding, asking and it will be given, he says confidence, faith, fervor, sincerity. That's what the faith is. Exactly this passage here that Simon Peter trusted him. And then Jesus comes and helps him and says, "You of little faith, why did you doubt?" Why did you doubt? So Kardec says that God comprehends our necessities and provides for them when needed. Nevertheless, man is insatiable in his desires and does not always know how to be content with what he has. Words spoken almost 200 years ago, very much applicable today, probably will be applicable in 200 years from now. We ask, God knows our necessities. Omnipotent, omnipresent, perfect, just, fair, loving. He knows. Possessing what is necessary is not enough for him. He demands that which is superfluous, meaning man, us. We demand that which is superfluous. Then providence leaves him to himself. Because we are sometimes like the spoiled children who want more and more and more and think that they need that. I need this, I need this. And the adults say, you don't need this, you want this. And we're like that as well. Oftentimes, when we're asking for something that this is what I need right now, and it's not given to us, oh, God failed me. People fail. No, because a lot of the times, what we're asking for is superfluous. And a lot of the times, we're also asking for the stones to leave the way without us doing anything. We're asking for the problem to be removed and not for the strength to withstand that problem and overcome that situation. Isn't that true? Ask for stronger shoulders. And there's this whole notion of that. And again, bringing this notion of Kardec that I love, if God is really the God that he talks about, that Jesus talked about, God would never give us something that we cannot and should not withstand. He wouldn't give us a weight that we can't carry. So there's that for us to think about when we're talking about seeking, you will find. But seek first, he's going to say, the kingdom of God. This is Matthew 6. In his righteousness, and all these things shall be added to you. Therefore, do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about its own things. Sufficient for the day is its own trouble. Oftentimes, we lose ourselves in worrying too much about what tomorrow will bring, and we forget to focus on today because today already has enough challenges on its own. And that's where anxiety comes from. Because anxiety is a disorder that focuses on the future. You're anxious about something that's going to happen, or something will repeat itself, but it's always focused on the future. And we are like that. That's why these rates, like I said, of anxiety, of mental health have like spiked so much as well, because of this notion that we are focusing on something ahead. We're focusing only on tomorrow and catastrophizing and thinking the worst's going to come, becoming desperate, becoming people without faith. And he's saying, and this is a passage from Matthew that Kardec includes in chapter 25. Do not lay up for yourselves. This is also another passage. Do not lay up for yourselves treasures on earth where moth and rust destroy and where thieves break in and steal. I love this passage. But lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven where neither moth nor rust destroys and where thieves do not break in and steal. Jesus here in this passage on chapter 6 of Matthew is telling us what the true treasures are. The true treasures that we must seek, that we must ask for. The true treasures that we're trying to store up, because we try to store up the material things. We try to store up things, he's saying here, that, the moth and rust destroy. Instead of trying to store up treasures on heaven, the virtues, charity, truly helping someone, truly helping ourselves. Those are the treasures that we must seek. The treasures in heaven, where nothing is going to destroy. Whatever we accumulate in terms of the true treasures, those will be with us. The moral progress we achieve will stay with us. The good that we do, will stay with us because we're immortal souls. And even when we discarnate, we're going to still have that with us. For wherever your treasure is, your heart will be also. There your heart will be also. Jesus, so wise, speaking so much in so little. For where your treasure is, that's where your heart's going to be. Meaning, whatever we're focusing on, whatever treasure I'm valuing, whatever treasure I'm seeking, I'm asking for, that's where my heart will be. If I'm asking for the treasure of humility, of patience, of charity, of benevolence, that's where my heart will be, meaning my thoughts, my sentiments, and my actions will align with that treasure. But if my treasure is a material thing that will come to dust, come to be dust again, that's where my heart's going to be as well. That's why we see the incessant need for material accumulation, for material improvement, for excessive works, trying to become more beautiful, youthful, richer, have more status. And then the thoughts, the sentiments, and the actions, they follow. Hence, Jesus said, do not accumulate treasures on earth because they are perishable, but accumulate them in heaven, where they are eternal. He explained even more so people back then would understand, and we're still trying to understand this. We're still trying not only to understand, but to apply this notion that the treasures of the heaven, not the treasures of the earth. Because a lot of the times, too, the treasures of the earth, they are there as instruments. And so if we put too much attention, focus, caring in those instruments, what's going to be with our time when we leave this earth and everything stays behind? We don't bring with us what we accumulate materially here. We don't. We don't bring with us for the spirit world. We don't bring with us for the next reincarnation. We don't. The things that we bring with us are these treasures, the virtues that we have practiced, how we have improved in our lifetime, how we have improved others in our lifetime. Those are the true treasures. So seeking and you shall find relates very much with this idea of the treasures of heaven, the true treasures that we will pursue. And here I brought some reflections for us. First one, what am I seeking? Seek and you shall find. We talked about that. What am I seeking? What am I truly prioritizing? What is in my mind and in my heart daily? What is it that I'm seeking? Am I seeking the treasures that the thieves can steal, perhaps? Or the things that will stay behind, the material improvements that will stay behind? Or am I seeking to improve myself and improve others around me? Or am I seeking the true treasures? Because remember, seek and you will find. Ask and you will be given. What am I asking for? What am I giving in return? Remember, we can't just ask and not give something. Jesus, who was somebody who could have multiplied, created bread out of nowhere, asked for the little bread that they had, the little loaves that they had, to multiply those loaves. What a message of humility as well. He could have simply created things out of nowhere. Of course, he could. He could manipulate matter in a way we don't understand, truly don't understand. We're scratching the surface. But the idea is, he asked for something. So when we're seeking, when we're asking, what are we giving in return? Are we truly putting our best effort? Are we truly being sincere? Are we asking with confidence, fervor, with faith? Remember that? What Kardec was talking about? So are we truly doing those things? How am I helping myself and others? This is the other one that I put here for us to think. And what treasures are we accumulating? So how am I helping myself and others? Because outside of charity, there's no salvation. So how am I improving myself morally? What treasures am I accumulating? How are we managing these treasures? And once we have them, how are we using them? If we have the treasure of knowledge, how are we using that knowledge? Are we spreading the good knowledge? What are we doing with that? So these are some reflections, and obviously this came from chapter 25 of the Gospel according to Spiritism. I also brought Emmanuel. We talked about Joanna, Umberto de Campos. We talked about a lot of different authors, and that's something I love about Spiritism, is how there's this congruency of information. It's not just one spirit, one person saying it. There's a lot of them saying in different words, different ways, but they're all saying the same message for us, and it's gonna land however it lands with us. But I always say, like, we have to study. So this is also my invitation to everybody. Let's study. Let's let's read. Let's go get the books. Let's study ourselves. Because every time we read, we understand something different. Or not necessarily different, but it's transformed. The only people who say that they read something like this more than one time and didn't see it differently, I think, are the ones who only read it once. Because anytime you read something like this and you study, you're gonna find something else, because you're also someone else in that moment. We are always changing. So read, study, and I want also to take 30 seconds here to share that some people say, oh, I don't like to read anymore. I don't have the time to read. I prefer to see a lecture, or I prefer to hear, like, to just listen to things. I also, last month, I released a podcast of reflections. It's only 15 minutes episodes where you can listen to a message about Spiritism in English and in Portuguese. So if you want to look on Spotify and YouTube, it's called Spiritist Companion, or Companheiro Espírita in Portuguese. 50 minutes. Meaning, if you want to read, which I definitely recommend, I love reading, read. Ah, but I don't like reading, I like watching. Watch lectures. There's so many Spiritist centers doing good work. Oh, I just like to listen to, especially when I'm driving. There you go. Now I just gave you something else as well for you to try. But the important thing is for us to be aligned with the knowledge, for us to be trying to understand and incorporate this knowledge in whatever way, reading, listening, like seeing, however we can, talking with someone else about it. And this is my encouragement to everyone that's here today, everybody that's online as well, that's watching this. Let us study, let us do our part, because nothing comes out of nowhere. We must do our part. Ask and it will be given to you. Seek and you will find. Knock and the door will be open to you. Words of our dear Master. And with that, I wish everybody a very blessed week. Thank you so much for your attention. Yes, I can do the prayer too. All right. So now let's close our eyes. Let's sit comfortably. Let's take a few deep breaths. Let us elevate our thoughts and connect with the spirituality. Connect with all the spirit benefactors that are here, that have helped us and are helping us. Let us open our minds to the knowledge and our heart to the sentiments of true love that Spiritism brings. Let us thank God for another opportunity to be here again on another day. Let us thank our Master Jesus for shining His light and showing us the way. Let us thank everybody who helped us. Let us send a sentiment of gratitude and of love. Let us also extend our hands to those who need so much of some love, for those who need the help, for those who are still in darkness. Let us send them our love. Let us send them everything we have, especially those who are suffering. And know that God is good and God is love. And so be it.
Thank you so much. So we end this part here, the first part. We have a breakfast table downstairs if you want to have breakfast. And we have another gospel in Portuguese today with Victor at 11:30. So thanks, everybody.